When three armed men stormed through those glass doors, they made one fatal mistake. They threatened his daughter. Marcus Hale had spent 6 years invisible. 6 years scrubbing floors in a building full of people who never looked twice at the night janitor. 6 years believing he could leave his past buried in blood and classified files. But the moment those guns turned toward 8-year-old Lily, everything he'd tried to forget came roaring back. Because some men aren't meant to disappear. And some skills, the kind written in muscle memory and scar tissue, don't fade just because you want them to. If you want to see how far a father will go when his world collapses in seconds, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in Vanguard Tower's 63rd floor hummed their usual monotonous song at 11:47 p.m. Marcus Hale pushed his cleaning cart past conference rooms where deals worth millions had been struck hours earlier, where men in $1,000 suits had decided the fates of people they'd never meet. The wheels squeaked. One of them always did, no matter how much WD-40 he used. He didn't mind the squeak anymore. Marcus was 42, though his hands looked older, scarred knuckles, a missing piece of his left pinky that he told people came from a car door. He wore the same dark blue uniform every shift, his name stitched in faded yellow thread over his heart. His hair, cut short and starting to gray at the temples, made him look tired, which he was, but it was a different kind of tired than before. "Daddy, can Mr. Buttons have some water?" Lily sat on the break room couch, legs swinging 6 inches off the floor, holding up a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. One ear hung by threads. The fur around its neck was matted from years of being dragged everywhere. "Mr. Buttons doesn't drink water, baby girl. He's a rabbit. Rabbits drink from bowls." "Then can he have a bowl?" Marcus smiled despite himself. "I'll see what I can do." The break room was small. 4 tables, a vending machine that ate more money than it dispensed, and a window that overlooked the city's skeletal sprawl. Lights stretched to the horizon like scattered stars that had fallen and gotten stuck in concrete. Lily came with him 3 nights a week when Mrs. Chen couldn't babysit. Marcus didn't love bringing her here, but the alternative was leaving an 8-year-old home alone in an apartment with locks that barely worked. He'd lived through worse risks. "Stay here while I finish the executive floor," Marcus said, tucking his access card into his pocket. "Don't touch the vending machine." "What if I'm hungry?" "Then you wait 15 minutes. He crouched down to her level, meeting eyes that were too much like her mother's, brown, bright, seeing more than they should. "And if anyone comes in who's not me, I hide in the supply closet and don't come out until you get me. Good girl." She nodded seriously, like he'd just briefed her on a tactical operation, which, in a way, he had. Marcus straightened, feeling his lower back protest. 30 years ago, he could do this job without thinking. 20 years ago, he wouldn't have needed to. 10 years ago. He stopped that thought before it went anywhere. The executive floor was always quiet. Thick carpet absorbed sound. The walls were real wood, not the laminate crap they used on the lower levels. Pictures of board members hung in identical frames, all of them smiling the same smile that didn't reach their eyes. Marcus knew those smiles. He'd worn one himself, once upon a time. He started with the offices on the east side, emptying trash cans that were never really full. Rich people didn't crumple paper and toss it. They had assistants for that. He vacuumed around desks worth more than his car, dusted sculptures he didn't understand, and wiped down windows that cost more to clean than he made in a month. The storm outside was getting worse. Rain hammered the glass in sheets. Lightning cracked the sky open every few minutes, turning the city into a flash photograph. There and gone, there and gone. Thunder followed, deep enough to feel in his chest. Marcus was wiping down the conference table in the main boardroom when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong. It was faint. A door closing somewhere below, maybe the stairwell. The elevators had keypads after hours. Nobody should be coming up here except security, and their rounds didn't start until 1 a.m. He paused, cloth in hand, and listened. Nothing. Then footsteps. Multiple sets, moving with purpose. Marcus set down the cloth carefully. His heart rate hadn't changed. His breathing stayed steady. His hands didn't shake. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a part of him that he'd buried years ago woke up and started running diagnostics. 3 men. Heavy boots. moving in formation, not security. He walked to the boardroom door and cracked it open. The hallway stretched empty in both directions, lit by recessed lighting that cast everything in shades of gray. He stepped out, moving on the balls of his feet, silent despite his work boots. The footsteps were coming from the south stairwell, getting closer. Marcus's mind went to Lily immediately. She was 2 floors down in the break room, probably singing to Mr. Buttons or drawing in the notebook he'd bought her. Safe, for now. He moved toward the stairwell door, pulling his phone from his pocket. No signal. The storm was messing with the towers. The building's landlines would work, but the nearest one was in the office he'd just left, and he'd lose time doubling back. The footsteps stopped. Marcus froze. The stairwell door burst open. 3 men came through fast and hard, tactical formation, dressed in black with no insignia. 2 carried submachine guns, MP7s, Marcus's brain supplied automatically. The third had a pistol drawn, sweeping corners like he'd done this before. They weren't looking at Marcus. They walked right past him like he was part of the furniture, heading for the executive offices. The one in front spoke into a radio, voice low. 6th floor clear, moving to target's office. Target? Marcus stayed perfectly still, his mind processing faster than his heart was beating. These weren't cops, weren't federal. The weapons were expensive, but not standard issue for any agency he knew. The way they moved spoke of military training, but their coordination was off. Mercenaries, maybe. Private contractors. And they'd called someone a target. The question was who? Marcus waited until they turned the corner, then moved. Not toward them, toward the stairs. He descended quickly, quietly, his work boots somehow making no sound. Muscle memory from another life took over, his body remembering things his conscious mind had tried to forget. 2 floors down. He reached the break room and pushed through the door. Lily looked up from her drawing. "Did you find a bowl for—" "We're leaving." Marcus kept his voice calm, easy. "Right now." Something in his tone made her move. She grabbed Mr. Buttons and slid off the couch without questions. Marcus took her hand, already planning routes. The main elevators would be watched. The service elevator required a key he didn't have. That left the stairs, but if they'd come up that way. Glass shattered somewhere above them. Gunfire erupted, short controlled bursts, then silence. Lily's hand tightened in his. Her eyes went wide, but she didn't scream. Good girl. He'd taught her that without meaning to, just by being the kind of father who always had an exit strategy. "Are those fireworks?" she whispered. "Yeah, baby. Somebody's celebrating early." He pulled her toward the door, then stopped. Footsteps in the hallway. Running, coming this way. Marcus shoved Lily toward the supply closet. "Inside, now. Don't come out." "But you said—" "I know what I said. Hide." She scrambled into the closet, clutching Mr. Buttons, and Marcus shut the door just as the break room entrance slammed open. A woman stumbled in, breathing hard, blood running down her temple. She wore a gray suit that probably cost $3,000, now torn at the shoulder. Her hair had come loose from whatever style it had been in. She looked like money and power brought to their knees. Marcus recognized her immediately. Victoria Vance, CEO. Her picture was in every elevator in this building, smiling that same empty smile as the board members upstairs. She saw him and froze. "You." Her voice came out sharp despite her breathing. The janitor. "Ma'am, you need to—" "They're coming." She looked at the door, then back at Marcus. "They're going to kill me." Marcus heard boots in the hall, close now. "Who's coming?" "I don't know." Her voice cracked. "I don't know who they are. I don't know what they want. I just—" The door opened again. 2 of the men from upstairs entered, weapons up. The one in front saw Victoria and smiled. "Miss Vance, we've been looking for you." Victoria backed toward the window. "I don't have what you want. I told them already. I don't—" "Where's the drive?" "There is no drive." The man's finger moved to the trigger. Wrong answer. Marcus stepped between them. He didn't think about it, didn't plan it. His body just moved, putting himself in the line of fire like it was the most natural thing in the world. The gunman's eyes finally registered the janitor's existence. "Move." "There's a kid in here," Marcus said quietly. "Not my problem." "Yeah." Marcus's voice went flat. It really is. The gunman raised his weapon. Marcus moved. Everything he'd buried for 6 years came back in a single fluid motion. He closed the distance before the man could fire, his left hand deflecting the weapon while his right drove into the man's throat. Not hard enough to kill, Marcus still had that much control, but hard enough to drop him gasping. The second gunman swung his MP7 around. Marcus was already there. He caught the barrel, twisted, and drove his elbow into the man's face. Cartilage crunched. The gun clattered to the floor. Marcus kicked it away, then swept the man's legs and followed him down, knee on his chest, hand around his throat. The first gunman was getting up, coughing, reaching for his sidearm. Marcus grabbed the fallen MP7 with his free hand, smooth, practiced, like he'd done it yesterday instead of years ago, and fired a 3-round burst into the floor next to the man's head. The sound was deafening in the small room. "Don't, Marcus said. The man froze. Marcus stood slowly, weapons still trained on both of them. His hands weren't shaking. His breathing was steady. He felt calm in a way he hadn't felt in years, and that terrified him more than the guns did. Victoria stared at him like he'd just materialized out of thin air. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus didn't answer. He was listening, footsteps again, more of them, coming from multiple directions. The third man from upstairs, plus others. This wasn't a simple grab job. They'd brought a whole team. The supply closet door creaked open. "Daddy?" Everything stopped. Lily stood in the doorway, Mr. Buttons clutched to her chest, eyes wide as saucers. She looked at the men on the floor, at the gun in Marcus's hands, at the blood on Victoria's face. "I heard loud noises," she whispered. The first gunman saw his chance. His hand moved toward his sidearm. Marcus didn't think. He just reacted. He dropped the MP7, crossed the distance in 2 strides, and had the man's arm wrenched behind his back before the pistol cleared its holster. The angle was wrong. Too much pressure and the shoulder would dislocate. Marcus held it right at the edge. "Touch that gun again, and I break it," he said quietly. "Nod if you understand." The man nodded. Marcus looked at Lily. "Baby girl, eyes closed. Count to 30. "But do it." She squeezed her eyes shut and started counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Marcus zip-tied both men with the plastic cuffs they'd brought for Victoria, using their own equipment against them. He cleared their weapons, dropped the magazines, and threw everything into the trash. Not perfect, but it would buy time. Victoria was still staring. "You're not a janitor." "Yeah, I am." Marcus took Lily's hand. "Come on." "Wait, you can't just leave me here with They came for you, not me. You want my advice? Call building security, tell them there's an armed intruder situation, and lock yourself in one of these offices until the cops show up. They'll kill me." Marcus looked at her. Really looked. She was terrified, covered in blood that might not be hers, and shaking like she'd been running for her life. Which she had been. "How many?" he asked. "What?" "How many men?" "I don't know. I saw at least 6, maybe more. They came out of nowhere. My security team is dead. My driver is dead. They knew exactly where I'd be." Marcus's jaw tightened. 6 men minimum, probably more. Professional hit squad, and they were in a building with 1,000 places to hide and nowhere to run. He looked at Lily. 8 years old, should be home in bed, should be drawing pictures or watching cartoons or doing anything except standing in a room where people were trying to kill each other. 15 Mississippi, 16 Mississippi. "Please," Victoria said. "I don't know who you are, but you just took down 2 armed men in about 4 seconds. If you're just a janitor, I'm the Queen of England." Marcus didn't smile. "You're not asking me to save you. You're asking me to risk my daughter. I'm asking you to help me stay alive long enough to figure out who's trying to kill me. Not my problem. They have my building locked down. Nobody's getting in or out until they find me. That includes you and your daughter." Marcus knew she was right. He'd already run the scenarios. The main exits would be covered. The parking garage would have men waiting. Even if he made it to the service areas, the storm would make any escape on foot a nightmare with an 8-year-old in tow. They were trapped. 30 Mississippi. Lily opened her eyes. "Did I do good?" "You did perfect, baby." Marcus knelt down to her level. "Listen to me. We're going to play a game, okay? A hiding game. I need you to be very quiet and very brave." Are those men bad? Marcus hesitated. He'd never lied to her about the important things. Yeah, they're bad. Are you going to stop them? I'm going to try. She nodded seriously, then looked at Victoria. Is she nice? Victoria blinked. Yes? Then we should help her. Lily said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. This was the moment. The choice. 6 years of invisible living, 6 years of pretending to be someone he wasn't, 6 years of keeping Lily safe by staying off everyone's radar. All of it gone if he did this. But if he didn't, they were dead anyway. All right, he said quietly. But we do this my way. Victoria nodded immediately. Whatever you say. Marcus stood, his mind already working. The building's layout, the access points, the security systems he'd studied during his shifts. He knew this place better than anyone. Every camera, every blind spot, every service corridor nobody used. How many exits have you seen them covering? He asked Victoria. Main lobby has at least 2 men. I didn't see the garage, but I heard them on the radio saying all exits secured. How'd they get past building security? I don't think they had to get past them. I think they are building security, or were. The night supervisor, Harmon, he was the one who told me to take the stairs. Said the elevators were down for maintenance. When I opened the stairwell door on 42, there were bodies. Marcus processed that. Inside job. Which meant the security systems were compromised, the access codes were known, and anyone who might have called for help was already dead or paid off. They were on their own. The service elevator, Marcus said. Behind the kitchen on sublevel 2. It's old mechanical override, doesn't run on the main grid. Where does it go? Maintenance sublevel, loading docks. But it's loud as hell, and it'll give away our position. Better than staying here. Marcus looked at the 2 zip-tied men on the floor. They'd regained enough composure to glare at him with promises of violence. They're going to tell their friends exactly where we went, Victoria said. Yeah. Marcus pulled out his phone, useless for calls, but the recorder still worked. He opened it, hit record, and set it on the break room table. But maybe we give them the wrong information. He grabbed Victoria's arm, gently but firm, and stage whispered, the roof access. We can get to the helipad and signal for help. Victoria caught on fast. Will it work? Only one way to find out. Come on. He kept the phone recording as they made noise leaving through the north exit, talking just loud enough for the zip-tied men to hear, but not so loud it seemed fake. Then he doubled back through the supply closet, Lily's hand in his, Victoria following close. Where are we really going? Victoria whispered. Down. They took the service stairs, narrow, concrete, nothing like the polished main stairwells. Marcus moved fast but careful, listening at every landing. Lily kept pace without complaining, her little legs working double time. They made it to sublevel 2 without contact. The kitchen was dark, industrial, full of stainless steel that reflected their shadows. Marcus led them past walk-in freezers and prep stations to a heavy door marked Authorized Personnel Only. He pulled out his access card. It didn't work. What's wrong? Victoria asked. They killed my clearance. Marcus tried again. Same result. Red light, angry beep. Can you override it? Marcus looked at the card reader, then at the door frame, then at the hinges. Yeah, but it's not going to be quiet. How not quiet? He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall mount. Cover your ears. Victoria pulled Lily close and covered the girl's ears just as Marcus swung the extinguisher into the card reader. Once, twice, 3 times. Plastic shattered. Sparks flew. The locking mechanism groaned and gave up. Marcus shouldered the door open. The service elevator waited in the darkness beyond, a cage of metal grating and cables that looked like it had been installed sometime during the Roosevelt administration. The first one. That's an elevator? Victoria sounded doubtful. It's vintage. Marcus pulled the gate open manually. It screamed on metal tracks. Get in! They piled inside. Marcus hit the button for sublevel 4, the maintenance level, and the elevator lurched into motion with a grinding sound that echoed up the shaft like a dying animal. So much for stealth, Victoria muttered. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they figure out the roof was a diversion and come looking. Marcus checked his watch. 12:23 a.m., less than an hour since this started. When we get down there, stay close and stay quiet. Lily tugged his sleeve. Daddy, who are you? Marcus looked down at his daughter. Those eyes. Those trusting, innocent eyes that still thought he was just a janitor who came home every morning smelling like floor wax and pine sol. Nobody, baby girl. Just your dad. But you... I know. He crouched down, taking both her hands. Sometimes dads know how to do things they don't talk about. Doesn't make them different people. Just means they've lived longer than you. It wasn't a lie. Not exactly. The elevator shuddered to a halt. Marcus pulled the gate open and stepped into a corridor that smelled like oil and mildew. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The walls were bare concrete. Single bulbs and wire cages provided light every 20 feet. This way. He led them through the mechanical guts of the building, past boilers and electrical panels and rooms full of equipment he couldn't name. The loading dock was at the far end, through a fire door that should be alarmed but might not be if the system was compromised. They were halfway there when Marcus heard it. Footsteps behind them. Multiple sets. Moving fast. Run, he said. Victoria grabbed Lily's other hand and they ran. Their footsteps echoed off concrete. The fire door was ahead, red and industrial and promising escape. Marcus hit it at full speed and they tumbled through into the loading area, a massive space with roll-up doors and dock plates, and a single security desk that was unmanned. The dock doors, Victoria gasped. Can we? Too slow. They'd catch us before we got them open. Then what? Marcus looked around. 3 roll-up doors, all closed. A row of parked delivery trucks. A forklift. Emergency lighting that cast everything in yellow. And the freight container. It sat in the corner, 40 feet long, rusted blue paint, stenciled with Chinese characters, and a shipping company logo he didn't recognize. The doors were open. In there, Marcus said. Now. They scrambled inside just as the fire door burst open and men poured through. Marcus pulled the container doors shut, leaving them cracked just enough to see out. Victoria was breathing hard. Lily clutched Mister. Buttons and stayed silent, eyes wide in the darkness. Marcus counted 6 men, all armed, all moving with purpose. Their radios crackled. Sublevel 4, loading area, no visual on targets. Copy, maintain position. They're down there somewhere. One of them, the leader, Marcus guessed from the way he moved, stopped in the middle of the loading area and looked around slowly. He was older than the others, maybe 50, with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen things. Those eyes swept across the freight container. Marcus held his breath. The man's radio crackled again. We've got movement on 63. They might have doubled back. The leader hesitated, then keyed his radio. Split up. 3 stay here, 3 come with me. If they're down here, they're trapped anyway. He left with half his team. The remaining 3 spread out, checking behind trucks and equipment. One of them walked straight toward the container. Marcus's hand went to his belt, where he'd tucked the pistol he'd taken off the first gunman. He hadn't wanted to. Hadn't wanted to touch a weapon again, hadn't wanted to remember how natural it felt in his hand. But some things you don't forget. The man got closer. 10 feet, 5 feet. His radio crackled. All units, building security has been notified of a break-in. Real cops are en route. ETA 7 minutes. Wrap this up. The man stopped, listened, then turned away from the container to join his companions. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They waited in the darkness. 5 minutes. 10. Victoria finally whispered, Are they gone? Some of them. Marcus cracked the container door wider and looked out. The loading area was empty now, but he could hear voices in the distance. Cops are coming. That changes things. How? They can't kill you if there are witnesses, which means they'll either pull out completely or they'll try to finish this fast before the police arrive. So what do we do? Marcus looked at Lily, who'd been silent this whole time. Brave, scared, but brave, like her mother had been. We wait for the cops, he said. Let them secure the building. You tell them everything. The hit team, your security being compromised, all of it. I'll back you up. And then? Then you go back to being a CEO and I go back to being a janitor. Victoria stared at him. You're really just going to walk away? That's the plan. Who are you? She asked again. Really? Marcus met her eyes. Someone who made a lot of bad choices a long time ago. Someone who's trying to make better ones now. Those men upstairs, you took them apart like you've done it 1,000 times. 943, Marcus said quietly. Then he caught himself. Doesn't matter. Old life. Done. Is it? Victoria's voice was soft but sharp, because from where I'm standing, it doesn't look very done. Marcus didn't answer. They waited. The cops arrived exactly 7 minutes later. Marcus heard sirens, saw lights flashing through the gaps in the roll-up doors. Voices shouted, radios crackled. The building came alive with law enforcement. Okay, Marcus said. Let's go. They emerged from the container into chaos. Police swarmed the loading area, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus put his hands up immediately, gun already on the ground at his feet. Janitor, he called out. Building employee. This is Victoria Vance, CEO. She's the target. Cops surrounded them instantly. Someone grabbed Marcus and slammed him against a truck. Hands searched him, found nothing but his ID badge and phone. He saved my life, Victoria was saying to a lieutenant. There was a hit team. They killed my security. This man protected me and my... She glanced at Lily. And his daughter. It took 20 minutes to sort out. Statements given. IDs checked. Building security footage reviewed, or tried to be, until they realized it had been wiped remotely. The bodies upstairs told the story Victoria couldn't prove. By 2 a.m., Marcus was free to go. The lieutenant, a tired-looking woman named Reeves, handed him his badge back. Hell of a night to bring your kid to work, she said. Yeah. You sure you're just a janitor? Marcus looked at her. That's what my paycheck says. Reeves didn't buy it, but didn't push. We'll need you to come in tomorrow for a full statement. Understood. He took Lily's hand and started for the exit. Mr. Hale. Marcus turned. Victoria stood there, looking smaller somehow, without the blood and terror. Just a woman in a ruined suit holding a business card. Thank you, Shisia, she said, for everything. Marcus nodded. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, call me. He took the card. Didn't look at it. Take care of yourself, Ms. Vance. They left through the main lobby, past crime scene tape and forensic photographers. The storm had passed. The sky was clearing. Dawn was maybe an hour away. Lily hadn't said a word since they'd left the container. Marcus knelt down on the sidewalk outside, right there in front of the building where he'd worked for 6 years. Talk to me, baby girl. She looked at him with eyes too old for 8 years. You were somebody else before you were my dad. It wasn't a question. Yeah, Marcus said. I was. Were you bad? Sometimes. Are you bad now? I'm trying not to be. She thought about that, hugging Mr. Buttons. You saved that lady. I did. That's good, right? Yeah, baby, that's good. Lily nodded slowly, processing. Then, can we go home? I'm tired. Marcus felt something ease in his chest. Yeah, let's go home. They walked to his car, a 10-year-old Honda with a busted tail light, and drove through empty streets toward their apartment. Lily fell asleep in the back seat before they'd gone 3 blocks. Marcus drove on autopilot, his mind elsewhere. 943. He hadn't meant to remember the number, hadn't meant to keep count. But your brain doesn't forget things like that, no matter how hard you try to bury them. 943 confirmed kills across 17 years of service. Black operations, denied actions. Things that never happened in countries that weren't supposed to matter. He'd been good at it, too good. And then Lily's mother had gotten sick, and priorities shifted, and Marcus had made a choice. Walk away before the job took everything. The agency hadn't liked it, but they'd let him go. New identity, new city, new life. As long as he stayed invisible, they stayed invisible too. 6 years. 6 years of peace. And tonight he'd thrown it all away in 4 seconds because 3 men had pointed guns at people they shouldn't have. Marcus pulled into the apartment complex parking lot and killed the engine. He sat there in the dark, watching Lily sleep. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Marcus almost didn't answer. Then muscle memory made him check. Unknown numbers from old contacts came through specific area codes, and this was one of them. He answered, said nothing, A voice he hadn't heard in 6 years spoke. Marcus Hale. Thought you were dead. I am. Funny, dead people don't disarm tactical teams. Marcus's blood went cold. How did you... Same way we always know. We're watching, always watching. A pause. You broke protocol. 3 men were about to kill a civilian and an 8-year-old kid. What was I supposed to do? Stay invisible. That was the deal. The deal's still good. Tonight was self-defense. Tonight was confirmation. The voice hardened. You've been flagged. Again, questions are being asked about who the janitor really is. Then unflag me. Not that simple anymore. You made noise, big noise. People heard it. Marcus closed his eyes. What people? The kind who've been looking for you for a very long time. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the dark, listening to his daughter breathe, and felt the past wrap around him like a chain he'd thought he'd broken. Somewhere in the city, in an office he'd never see, someone was pulling files that were supposed to stay buried, running searches that would lead to questions, questions that would lead to answers, and once they had answers, they'd come. Marcus looked at Lily one more time, peaceful in sleep, then got out and carried her upstairs to their apartment. He tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, and stood in the doorway watching her for a long time. I'm sorry, baby girl, he whispered. I tried. Then he went to his bedroom, pulled a locked box from under the bed, and opened it for the first time in 6 years. Inside, a passport with a different name, cash in 4 currencies, a memory card with encrypted files, and a phone number written on paper so old it was starting to yellow. Marcus stared at the number. Everything he'd built, the quiet life, the normal job, the chance for Lily to grow up safe, all of it hung in the balance. He could run, take Lily and disappear into the machinery of false identities and safe houses he'd built into his exit strategy. Or he could stay and hope the noise died down. His phone buzzed again. Different number. This one he recognized. Victoria Vance. The text was short. They found my house. 3 more dead. This isn't over, please. Marcus read it twice. Then he looked at the box under his bed, at the tools of a life he'd sworn to leave behind. Outside, the sun started to rise over a city that didn't know his name, didn't know what he'd done or who he'd been. He'd wanted it that way. But wanting and having were different things. Marcus picked up his phone and typed a response. Where are you? The answer came immediately. Safe house, sending coordinates. Marcus looked at those coordinates for a long time. Then he started making calls. The invisible man was about to become visible again, and that meant bodies. The first call Marcus made was to Mrs. Chen. She answered on the 3rd ring, voice thick with sleep. Marcus? It's 5 in the morning. I know. I'm sorry. He kept his voice low, standing in the kitchen while Lily slept down the hall. I need a favor. A big one. What happened? Can't explain right now. I need you to take Lily for a few days. Maybe a week. Silence on the other end. Then, you're scaring me. I know, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Mrs. Chen had been their neighbor for 4 years. She'd watched Lily grow from a tiny thing who could barely reach the kitchen counter into the bright-eyed kid who now helped her bake cookies every Sunday. She'd never asked about Lily's mother, never pushed when Marcus deflected questions about his past. Bring her over, Mrs. Chen said finally. I'll make breakfast. Thank you. Marcus ended the call and stared at the coordinates Victoria had sent. They led to an address in the industrial district, the kind of place where buildings had numbers instead of names and nobody asked questions. He made 2 more calls. The first went to a voicemail that didn't identify itself. Marcus left 4 words. Reaper requesting emergency extract. Reaper. His call sign from another life. Saying it out loud felt like putting on clothes that didn't fit anymore. The second call was answered immediately. Jesus Christ, Marcus, do you have any idea what you've done? The voice belonged to Thomas Webb, the only person from his old life who'd stayed in touch. They'd served together for 8 years, bled together, buried friends together. When Marcus walked away, Webb had understood in a way the agency never did. Yeah, Marcus said. I know exactly what I've done. They're lighting up the networks. Facial recognition hit from building security footage before it got wiped. Someone ran your face through every database from here to Beijing. And you're lucky I still have access to flag these things before they propagate. I killed the matches, burned the queries, but Marcus, someone's looking hard. Like burn everything to find you hard. Marcus rubbed his eyes. Who? Don't know yet. The search originated from a shell company in Cyprus, bounced through servers in 3 countries. Professional work. Whoever it is has resources. Can you trace it back? I can try, but it's going to take time you might not have. Webb paused. What are you going to do? Marcus looked at the coordinates again. What I should have done 6 years ago. Finish it. Marcus, you've got a kid now. This isn't, I know what I've got. That's why I'm doing this. Webb was quiet for a moment. You need backup? Not yet. I need information. Victoria Vance, CEO of Vanguard Industries. Someone sent a hit team after her tonight. Find out why. On it. And Marcus, watch your back. If they're willing to hit a CEO in her own building, they're not playing games. Neither am I. Marcus hung up and stood in the kitchen, watching the sun climb higher through the window. Normal people were waking up now, making coffee, getting ready for work, living lives that didn't involve counting bodies or checking corners. He used to be one of them. For 6 whole years, he'd been one of them. Down the hall, Lily stirred. Marcus heard her footsteps padding toward the bathroom, then the sound of water running. She appeared in the kitchen doorway a few minutes later, Mr. Buttons under one arm, eyes still heavy with sleep. Morning, baby girl. Are we still in trouble? The question hit him harder than it should have. Most 8-year-olds would have pushed last night into the category of bad dreams and moved on. But Lily had learned early that the world had sharp edges. No, Marcus said. It was a lie, but a necessary one. We're safe now, but I need you to stay with Mrs. Chen for a little while. How long? I don't know yet. Lily climbed onto a kitchen chair, setting Mr. Buttons carefully on the table. Is it because of those men? Yeah. Are you going to fight them again? Marcus knelt down so they were eye level. I'm going to make sure they never come back. That's different from fighting. How? Sometimes you stop bad things from happening by being smart instead of strong. She considered this then. Mrs. Chen makes good pancakes. Marcus smiled despite everything. Yeah, she does. Can I bring my art supplies? All of them. He packed her a bag while she got dressed. Clothes, toothbrush, the battered notebook she drew in, crayons worn down to nubs. When she came back out, she was wearing her favorite shirt, the one with a cartoon rabbit that looked nothing like Mr. Buttons, but which she insisted was his cousin. They walked to Mrs. Chen's apartment 3 doors down. The old woman opened before Marcus could knock, like she'd been waiting by the door. Come in, come in. She ushered Lily inside with the kind of practiced warmth that made Marcus's chest ache. I'm making chocolate chip pancakes. Your favorite, yes? Lily nodded, suddenly shy. Mrs. Chen looked at Marcus over Lily's head. Her expression asked 1,000 questions she didn't voice. I'll call every day, Marcus said. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you take her and go to your sister's place upstate. Don't pack, don't hesitate, just go. Marcus, please. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. Be careful. Marcus kissed Lily's forehead. Be good for Mrs. Chen, okay? I always am. I know. He forced himself to turn away before the guilt could root him in place. I love you, baby girl. Love you too, Daddy. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like an ending. Marcus stood in the hallway for a moment, then walked back to his apartment and got to work. The box under his bed yielded more than just documents and cash. There was a phone, a secure model he'd kept charged out of habit, and a hard drive containing encrypted files he'd sworn never to access again. He connected it to his laptop and started the decryption sequence. It would take an hour. While he waited, Marcus changed. The janitor's uniform went into the trash. In its place, dark jeans, a black shirt, boots with good tread. Practical. Forgettable. He checked the pistol he'd taken last night, a Glock 19, standard mercenary fare, Full magazine, one in the chamber, clean action. Muscle memory took over. Check the sights, test the trigger pull, verify the safety. It felt like coming home to a house he'd burned down. The decryption finished at 6:47 a.m. Marcus opened the files and started reading. Mission reports, target profiles, operational summaries spanning 17 years, names and faces of people who'd stopped existing because he'd made them stop. He skipped past those, no point in excavating old ghosts, and focused on the relevant ones. Victoria Vance's name didn't appear anywhere, but her company did. Vanguard Industries showed up in 3 separate reports from 12 years ago, flagged as a potential front for arms trafficking. The investigation had been shelved when their primary source, a whistleblower named David Chen, disappeared, presumed dead. Case closed. Marcus pulled up everything he could find on Chen, former VP of operations at Vanguard, had gone to the feds with evidence of illegal weapons sales to embargoed countries. 2 weeks later, his car went off a bridge. No body recovered. The case had stalled without physical evidence, and Vanguard had weathered the scandal with expensive lawyers and strategic donations. But if Chen had been telling the truth, that meant Vanguard's current CEO might not know about the illegal operations running under her nose. Or she knew everything, and last night was a cleanup operation. Marcus needed more information. He grabbed the secure phone and texted the coordinates Victoria had sent. No words, just a timestamp, 0900. The response came within seconds. Understood. Marcus spent the next 2 hours preparing. He mapped the route to the safe house, identified 3 alternate exits, and ran background checks on every property within a 2-block radius. Then he pulled up Victoria's public profile. Victoria Vance, 46 years old, CEO of Vanguard Industries for the past 8 years. MBA from Wharton. Started in their finance department, climbed the ladder through a combination of ruthless efficiency and political savvy. Divorced. No kids. Net worth estimated at $200 million. The photos showed a woman who wore power like a tailored suit, confident, composed, untouchable. The woman he'd seen last night had been none of those things. At 8:30, Marcus left the apartment. He took a cab to within 6 blocks of the safe house, paid in cash, and walked the rest of the way. The neighborhood was industrial decay, pretending to be revitalization. Old warehouses with new windows, converted lofts that cost more than they should, artisan coffee shops that would be gone in 2 years. The safe house was a 4th-floor walk-up above a vintage furniture store that looked closed permanently. Marcus checked the street, 3 pedestrians, 2 cars, nobody watching, then tried the door. Locked. He knocked twice, waited, knocked 3 times. The lock disengaged with a heavy click. Inside, the stairwell smelled like old wood and motor oil. Marcus climbed quickly, his hand near the Glock tucked into his waistband. At the 4th floor, another door waited, also locked. He repeated the knock pattern. This time, Victoria opened it herself. She looked different in daylight without the blood and terror. She'd showered, changed into jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. But her hands shook when she locked the door behind him. "You came," she said. "You asked." The apartment was sparse, furniture that came with the rental, windows covered with blinds that stayed closed. A laptop sat open on the coffee table, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. "How long have you been up?" Marcus asked. "I haven't slept." Victoria gestured to the couch. "Sit. Please, do you want coffee?" "What I want is answers." She nodded, like she'd expected that. "What do you want to know?" "Start with who wants you dead and why." Victoria sat across from him, hands clasped in her lap. "I don't know. You're going to need to do better than that." "I'm serious. I've been going through everything. Business deals, personnel files, litigation history. I can't find anything that would justify sending a hit team." Marcus leaned forward. "What about David Chen?" Victoria's face went blank. "How do you know that name?" "I know a lot of names. Answer the question." "David Chen was before my time. He made allegations about illegal weapons sales, claimed Vanguard was trafficking arms to embargoed countries. It wasn't true. The investigation cleared us. He died before he could testify. He had an accident." Marcus held her gaze. "You believe that?" Victoria looked away. I don't know what I believe anymore. When did you become CEO? 8 years ago. And you've never seen anything suspicious? No unusual transactions? No shipments that didn't add up? Vanguard is a $50 billion company. We have operations in 30 countries. I can't personally audit every transaction. But you have people who do. Of course. And they've never flagged anything? Victoria's jaw tightened. 3 months ago, our CFO, Richard Morse, came to me with concerns about a series of offshore accounts. Money moving through shell companies, always just under the reporting threshold. He wanted to bring in external auditors. What did you do? I told him to wait. We were in the middle of a merger negotiation. The last thing we needed was the appearance of financial irregularity. What happened to Morse? Victoria's face went pale. He took a leave of absence. Stress, he said. I haven't spoken to him in 6 weeks. Marcus pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to Webb. Richard Morse, CFO, Vanguard Industries. Find him. Someone inside your company is running an illegal operation, Marcus said. Big enough to justify killing anyone who gets close. Big enough to send a professional hit team after you when you become a liability. But I'm not a liability. I don't know anything. Maybe you know more than you think. Or maybe someone thinks you're about to figure it out. Marcus stood and walked to the window, checking the street below, still clear. The men last night, they wanted something, a drive. You said there was no drive. There isn't. Then why did they think there was? Victoria opened her laptop and turned it to face him. This came 2 days ago. The email was brief and anonymous. You have what we need. Return it by Friday or face consequences. You know what this is about? I thought it was spam, Victoria said. We get dozens of threats every week. Disgruntled employees, activists, conspiracy theorists. I forwarded it to security and deleted it. And then last night happened. Yes. Marcus read the email again. They think you have something. Evidence, maybe. Something that proves what they're doing. But I don't. Did Morse give you anything? Files, documents, a thumb drive? No, we only talked in person. He was paranoid about electronic communication. Smart man. Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from Webb. Morse is dead. Suicide. Found in his apartment 4 weeks ago. Single gunshot. No note. Marcus showed Victoria the message. She put a hand over her mouth. Oh my God. This isn't about what you know, Marcus said quietly. It's about what you might find out. Morse was getting close to something. They killed him and made it look like suicide, but they're not sure if he gave you anything before he died. So they're eliminating the possibility. By killing me. Yeah. Victoria stood abruptly and walked to the window, her back to Marcus. I built that company, not from the ground up. My predecessors did that, but I made it better, stronger. I've spent 8 years fighting for every dollar, every contract, every inch of market share. And now you're telling me it's all rotten underneath. Some of it is, maybe not all. How can I even tell the difference anymore? Marcus didn't have an answer for that. His phone rang. Webb's number. Talk to me, Marcus answered. Found your paper trail. Took some digging, but the hits on Victoria Vance were ordered through a contractor called Shadowline Solutions. They're a private military company based in Luxembourg, but their real operations are off-book. Black bag stuff. Wet work. Who's paying them? That's where it gets interesting. The money comes from a holding company that owns 17% of Vanguard Industries, companies called Meridian Holdings, registered in the Cayman Islands. Zero public information. Marcus looked at Victoria. You know anything about Meridian Holdings? She frowned. They're one of our major shareholders, very hands-off. I've never even met their representatives. All communication goes through lawyers. They're trying to kill you, Marcus said flatly. That doesn't make sense. If I die, the stock price crashes. They'd lose billions. Not if they're planning to buy out the company after the crash. Stock price drops. They swoop in, take majority control. Marcus turned back to the phone. Webb, dig into Meridian. I need names, addresses, anything that connects them to real people. Already on it. But Marcus, there's something else. That facial recognition search that hit on you last night? I traced the source. It came from the same network as Shadowline Solutions. The apartment felt suddenly colder. They know who I am, Marcus said. More than that. Someone just put a bounty on your head. $2 million to anyone who delivers you alive. Posted on 3 dark web contractor boards in the last hour. Victoria was staring at him now. Why would they want you? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He was running scenarios, probabilities, threat assessments, the kind of math that had kept him alive for 17 years. Because I'm the only person who can prove what happened last night, he said finally. Victoria's a CEO. She's got lawyers, money, connections. Killing her creates problems. But me? I'm nobody. A janitor who got in the way. If I disappear, the whole story falls apart. They're going to come after you, Victoria said. Yeah. What are we going to do? Marcus looked at her, really looked. She was scared but standing firm, asking what we were going to do, not what he was going to do. You're going to stay here, Marcus said. Doors locked, windows covered. Don't answer the door for anyone. I'll have someone deliver food and supplies. And you? I'm going to find out who's behind Meridian Holdings and make them wish they'd never heard my name. He was halfway to the door when Victoria spoke again. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Marcus stopped, his hand on the doorknob. You're right. I don't. Then why? He thought about Lily, thought about the life he'd built, fragile and precious. Thought about how it had all come apart the moment he'd chosen to act instead of hiding. Because they made it personal, Marcus said. And because if I don't stop them now, they'll never stop coming. Not for you, not for me, not for anyone who knows too much. He left before she could respond. Outside, the morning had turned overcast. Rain threatened but hadn't arrived yet. Marcus walked 4 blocks, checking behind him constantly, before he found a coffee shop with public Wi-Fi. He ordered black coffee he didn't want and sat in the back corner where he could watch the door. Webb called again. I've got a partial on Meridian Holdings. The ownership structure is buried under about 15 layers of shell companies, but I found a name attached to one of the original founding documents. Viktor Kashev. Marcus's blood went cold. Say that again. Viktor Kashev. Does that mean something to you? It meant everything. Marcus hadn't heard that name in 12 years, hadn't let himself think about it. But now it was back, crawling out of memory like a corpse from shallow grave. Webb, I need you to pull a file, classified, Operation Valkyrie, 2013. Marcus, those files are sealed. I can't just find a way. He hung up and sat very still, his coffee growing cold in front of him. Operation Valkyrie had been a black op to intercept a weapons shipment in Crimea. The intel said the seller was a Russian arms dealer named Viktor Kashev, and the buyer was a terrorist cell planning attacks across Europe. The mission was simple: infiltrate, eliminate the dealers, secure the weapons. Marcus had led the team. It had gone sideways in the worst way possible. They'd walked into a trap. The terrorist buyers were actually undercover Interpol agents. The weapons shipment was a sting operation, and Kashev had somehow known they were coming. Marcus's team had been caught in the crossfire. 3 agents dead, 2 captured and tortured before Marcus could extract them. The whole thing had been a disaster that took 2 years of diplomatic back-channeling to bury. And Kashev had disappeared. Until now. Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming file from Webb. He opened it, and there it was, Kashev's profile from 12 years ago. Viktor Kashev, age 58, former KGB, transitioned to private arms dealing after the Soviet collapse. Connections to organized crime, corrupt officials, and insurgent groups worldwide. Suspected of trafficking everything from small arms to surface-to-air missiles. And at the bottom of the file, a note Marcus had written himself during the debriefing. Subject possesses detailed knowledge of operation. Possible leak from within agency. Recommend immediate investigation. That investigation had gone nowhere. Or rather, it had been shut down from above before it could go anywhere. Someone had protected Kashev. Someone inside the agency had given him the intel that let him walk away clean while Marcus's team died in the dirt. And now, 12 years later, Kashev was back. Operating through shell companies and hit teams. Hiding behind legitimate business while running guns to whoever paid the most. Marcus pulled up a search for recent arms trafficking incidents. The list was long, but three stood out. A shipment intercepted in Yemen containing American-made rifles, an explosion at a Syrian depot traced back to faulty ammunition from Eastern Europe, and a raid on a Mexican cartel that uncovered crates of grenades marked with Vanguard Industries serial numbers. The pattern was there if you knew where to look. Khashoggi was using Vanguard as a front, legitimate shipments mixed with illegal ones, money laundered through offshore accounts, and anyone who got close, like David Chen, like Richard Morse, ended up dead. Victoria had been telling the truth. She didn't know, but she was about to. And that made her a liability Khashoggi couldn't afford. Marcus finished his cold coffee and made another call. "I need a meeting," he said when the voice answered. "With who?" "Anyone who remembers Operation Valkyrie." Silence. Then, "That's a long list of dead people, Marcus. Not all of them." "What are you planning?" "To finish what I started 12 years ago." He ended the call and walked out into the gathering rain, leaving the coffee shop and its false sense of normalcy behind. Somewhere in this city, Viktor Khashoggi was planning his next move. Marcus was going to make sure it was his last. The meeting place was a bar in Chinatown that had been there since before Marcus was born, the kind of establishment where the bartender didn't ask questions and the regulars knew to mind their business. Marcus arrived 20 minutes early and took a booth in the back where he could watch both entrances. The rain had settled into a steady drumming against the windows. Outside, the city moved through its rhythms, tourists dodging puddles, delivery trucks blocking traffic, steam rising from subway grates like the whole place was breathing. Marcus ordered whiskey he wouldn't drink and waited. Webb showed up first, looking more tired than Marcus remembered. 6 years had added gray to his temples and lines around his eyes. He slid into the booth without ceremony. "You look like hell," Marcus said. "Yeah, well, you look like a guy who just painted a target on his back." Webb signaled the bartender for coffee. "I pulled the Valkyrie files. Took some creative access to systems I'm not supposed to touch anymore, but I got them." "And?" "And you were right. The operation was compromised from the inside. Someone fed Khashoggi your team's movements, entry points, extraction routes, everything." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Who?" "That's where it gets messy. The internal investigation was shut down by Director Callahan himself, all evidence sealed under national security classification. Callahan's been dead for 8 years, which makes him very convenient. Dead men can't contradict the official story." Webb pulled a tablet from his bag and slid it across the table. "But here's what I found in the margins. 3 days before Operation Valkyrie, someone accessed the mission files from a terminal in the agency's Financial Crimes Division. That someone was never identified, but the access logs show they downloaded everything: team composition, tactical plans, the works." Marcus scrolled through the documents. Financial Crimes Division. Why would they care about a weapons interdiction in Crimea? They wouldn't, unless the weapons themselves weren't the real target. "Explain." Webb leaned forward. What if Valkyrie wasn't about stopping Khashoggi? What if it was about protecting him? The pieces started falling into place in Marcus's head, ugly and precise. "Someone wanted Khashoggi operational," Marcus said slowly. "Needed him to keep moving weapons. But Interpol was getting close with their sting, so the agency stepped in. Sent us to eliminate the buyers and make it look like Khashoggi was the victim of a terrorist ambush. Except you survived. Your team survived, which meant witnesses who could eventually connect the dots." Marcus thought about the 3 men who died that night: Johnson, Rhodes, Kimura. Good operators, better friends. They'd bled out in the mud while Khashoggi escaped, and someone in Washington covered their tracks. "Who benefits from keeping Khashoggi in business?" Marcus asked. "That's the question I've been chasing for the last 4 hours." Webb pulled up another file. Khashoggi's biggest customers over the past decade have been insurgent groups in Syria, Yemen, and Libya. Groups that just happened to need weapons when the US wanted regime change but couldn't provide direct support. Proxy wars. Exactly. Khashoggi was a cutout. Someone in the intelligence community was using him to arm rebel groups without congressional oversight or paper trails. Clean, deniable, and highly illegal. Marcus sat back, processing. And Vanguard Industries? Perfect cover. legitimate defense contractor with government connections and international shipping infrastructure. Kashev buys a controlling interest through shell companies, uses their supply chain to move illegal weapons, and skims profits from both the legal and illegal sides. Until someone inside Vanguard notices the discrepancies. Like David Chen, like Richard Morse. Webb paused. Like Victoria Vance, eventually. The bartender brought Webb's coffee. Neither of them touched their drinks. "There's more," Webb said. "I traced some of Meridian Holdings' financial transactions. Most of them are buried under enough encryption to take months to crack, but one account got sloppy. Wire transfer from Meridian to a numbered account in Switzerland, then from Switzerland to a real estate holding company in Virginia. Let me guess. Someone bought a nice house. Someone bought 3, plus a yacht and a ski chalet in Aspen." Webb turned the tablet to show a photo of a sprawling estate. "Belongs to Mitchell Crane, former deputy director of the CIA. Retired 5 years ago with a generous pension and apparently a side income he didn't report." Marcus recognized the name. Crane had been one of the old guard, the kind of bureaucrat who treated field agents like chess pieces and measured success in quarterly reports to congressional committees. "Crane was the one who shut down the Valkyrie investigation," Marcus said. "Correct. Which means he's been protecting Kashev for over a decade and profiting from it." Webb pulled up bank records. "I can't prove it definitively without a warrant I'll never get, but the pattern's clear. Every time Kashev makes a major sale, money flows through Meridian, and Crane's lifestyle gets a little more expensive." Marcus stared at the photo of Crane's estate. Manicured lawns, security gates, the kind of fortress built with blood money and justified by national security. "Where is he now?" Marcus asked. "His estate in McLean. He's hosting some kind of charity gala tomorrow night. Big donors, politicians, the usual crowd." Webb met Marcus's eyes. "You're not thinking what I think you're thinking. I need to talk to him." "Marcus, you can't just walk up to a former deputy director and I'm not going to walk up to him. I'm going to make him come to me." Webb rubbed his face. "This is a bad idea." "You have a better one?" "Yeah. We take everything we've found to the current director, let the agency handle it internally." Marcus laughed without humor. "The same agency that buried the Valkyrie investigation? The same agency that's probably still using Kashev's services? We go to them, these files disappear, and we end up in black sites answering questions we can't afford to answer." "So what's your plan?" "I need Crane rattled, scared enough to make a mistake, scared enough to contact Kashev directly." "And then?" "Then I follow the trail back to wherever Kashev is hiding, and I finish what I started 12 years ago." Webb closed his eyes. "You know they'll kill you for this." "They're already trying to kill me. At least this way I get to choose the battlefield." A new voice cut through the conversation. "Bold strategy. Probably stupid, but bold." Marcus's hand moved toward the Glock tucked in his waistband, then stopped. The woman who slid into the booth next to Webb was maybe 50, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. She wore a dark suit that screamed federal agent, and her presence carried the weight of authority that couldn't be faked. "Agent Sarah Chen," she said, extending a hand Marcus didn't take. "I was David Chen's sister." The name hit Marcus like cold water. He looked at Webb, who had the decency to appear guilty. "I made some calls," Webb said. "Figured you could use an ally who has skin in this game." Sarah Chen withdrew her hand without offense. "My brother spent 2 years gathering evidence against Vanguard Industries. Evidence that would have exposed not just the illegal weapons trafficking, but the government officials profiting from it. 3 weeks before his testimony, his car went off a bridge." "I'm sorry for your loss," Marcus said carefully. "Save it. I don't want condolences. I want justice." She pulled out her own tablet and laid it on the table next to Webb's. "I've spent 12 years investigating my brother's death. The FBI gave me 6 months before they called it an accident and moved on. I never did." The screen showed documents Marcus recognized, shipping manifests, financial records, email chains between Vanguard executives and unknown parties. "This is what David died for," Sarah said. "Proof that Vanguard was selling weapons to embargoed countries, Proof that serial numbers were being filed off American military hardware, and those weapons were ending up in the hands of terrorists and insurgents. "Where did you get these?" Marcus asked. David was paranoid, smart too. He kept copies of everything in 3 separate locations. The feds found 2 of them. They never found the 3rd. She smiled grimly. "He left it with me. Told me if anything happened to him, I should make sure the truth came out." "Why didn't you?" "Because everyone he'd planned to testify to was either dead, discredited, or bought." The congressional committee dissolved. The federal prosecutor got promoted to a judgeship and suddenly couldn't remember the case. Every door I tried to open got slammed in my face. Marcus understood that feeling. "What changed?" he asked. "Victoria Vance nearly got killed in her own building. That changes the equation. She's high profile enough that her death would trigger real investigations. And you—" Sarah looked at Marcus with something that might have been respect. "You're the wild card nobody planned for. A ghost with skills and nothing to lose." "I have a daughter," Marcus said quietly. "Then you have everything to lose, which makes this even more interesting." Sarah leaned back. "Here's what I'm offering. I give you everything David collected. Names, dates, transaction records, shipping routes, everything you need to prove that Kashiv has been using Vanguard as a front for over a decade. In exchange for? You get me close to the people who killed my brother, and you make sure they answer for it." Marcus studied her. Federal agents didn't usually propose revenge missions, but there was something in her eyes that went beyond professional duty. 12 years of grief and rage, carefully contained but always burning. "You know this could cost you your career, Nick," Marcus said. "I stopped caring about my career about 10 years ago. Now I just want to sleep without seeing my brother's face." Webb was shaking his head. "This is insane. You're talking about going after a former CIA deputy director, a Russian arms dealer, and whoever else is part of this network. The 3 of you against what? Dozens of trained killers and the resources of multiple intelligence agencies?" "4, a new voice said. Victoria Vance stood at the entrance to the booth, soaking wet from the rain, looking nothing like a CEO and everything like someone who'd made a decision she couldn't take back. Marcus stood. "What are you doing here?" "Webb called me. Said there was a meeting I should attend." Marcus shot Webb a look that could have peeled paint. Webb shrugged. "She deserves to know what she's caught up in," Webb said. Victoria slid into the booth across from Marcus. Up close, he could see she hadn't slept. Her hands trembled slightly when she laid them flat on the table. "I did some digging of my own," she said. "Called in favors, accessed files I probably shouldn't have. I found Richard Morse's personal laptop. His wife gave it to me. She never believed he killed himself." "What was on it?" Sarah asked. Victoria pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "Evidence. Months of documentation. Richard had been tracking unusual shipments through our South Asian distribution network. Containers that shipped from our warehouses but never appeared in our inventory system. Money moving through accounts that didn't exist in our official books." "Did he know who was behind it?" Marcus asked. "No, but he knew someone high up was involved, someone with access to override shipping manifests and authorization codes." Victoria's voice hardened. "Someone who ordered his death when he got too close." Sarah took the flash drive and plugged it into her tablet. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the files. "This is it," she breathed. "This is everything. Shipping dates, container numbers, destination ports. If we cross-reference this with David's evidence, we can prove the entire operation," Marcus finished. "Not just that it's happening, but exactly how it works." Webb looked sick. "You understand what you're sitting on, right? This isn't just corporate malfeasance. This is treason, conspiracy, arms trafficking on a scale that's funded wars across 3 continents. The people involved will burn everything to keep this buried." "Good," Victoria said. "Let them burn." Marcus sat down slowly. "You should walk away. Take this evidence to the Justice Department. Let them handle it." "Like they handled it when David tried?" Sarah's voice was sharp. "Like they handled it when Richard raised red flags? These people own the system, Marcus. The only way to stop them is from outside the system." "She's right," Victoria said. "I've spent the last 12 hours making calls, pulling strings. trying to find someone in law enforcement I could trust with this. You know what I found? Nothing. Every name I tried was either connected to Vanguard, or to someone connected to Vanguard, or to someone who owed favors to someone connected to Vanguard. The corruption goes deep, Sarah said, deeper than any of us realized. Marcus looked at the three of them. Webb, exhausted but determined. Sarah, driven by 12 years of buried rage. Victoria, a CEO, who just discovered her empire was built on blood. Here's what you need to understand, Marcus said. If we do this, there's no going back. We're not just going after Kashev or Crane or whoever else is involved. We're declaring war on a network that has unlimited resources and zero accountability. They will come at us with everything they have. I know, Victoria said. I'm counting on it, Sarah added. Webb just nodded. Wouldn't be the first impossible fight we've taken on. Marcus pulled the flash drive from Sarah's tablet and held it up to the light. Such a small thing, barely weighed anything, but the information it contained could bring down governments and end careers that stretched back decades. All right, he said, but we do this smart. No cowboys, no revenge fantasies. We hit them where they're weakest, and we don't stop until every single person involved is either in prison or dead. What's the play? Webb asked. Marcus laid it out. Crane's charity gala was tomorrow night. High security, vetted guest list, probably a dozen armed security contractors mixed in with the politicians and donors. Walking in the front door was suicide. But Marcus wasn't planning to use the front door. Crane's estate has a service entrance, he said. Caterers, staff, vendors. They'll be running background checks, but those can be spoofed. Webb, can you create clean identities for insertion? How many? 3. Me, you, and Sarah. What about me? Victoria asked. You're the public face. While we're inside getting to Crane, you're going to be somewhere very public and very visible. Restaurant, hotel lobby, somewhere with cameras and witnesses. If anything happens to us, you go loud with everything we've found. That makes me bait. That makes you insurance. Victoria didn't look happy about it, but she nodded. Sarah was already pulling up schematics of Crane's estate on her tablet. Security's going to be tight. Former CIA doesn't mess around with personal protection, which is why we're not going in armed, Marcus said. Metal detectors. Probably wands at the entrance. We go in clean, blend with the catering staff, and wait for the right moment. What moment? Webb asked. The moment Crane goes somewhere private to take a call. These events, people are always stepping out to handle business. We catch him alone, show him what we have, and make it clear that his only option is to cooperate. He'll never flip, Sarah said. Men like that don't break. We're not trying to flip him. We're trying to scare him enough that he contacts Kashev, warns him that someone's onto them. When he does, we'll be listening. How? Marcus smiled without warmth. Because Webb's going to plant a bug on him during the event. Webb blinked. I'm sorry, what? You were signals intelligence for 8 years? You know how to plant surveillance devices. That was a long time ago, Marcus. And I was never field ops. I sat in a van and monitored frequencies. So you'll be nervous. Even better. Nervous caterers don't raise suspicion. This is insane, Webb muttered, but he was already nodding. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Sarah pulled building layouts, security schedules, and guest lists. Webb worked on creating false identities that would pass surface-level background checks. Victoria made calls to secure their fallback positions and safe houses. Marcus watched them work and felt something he hadn't felt in 6 years. Purpose. Direction. The cold clarity that came from having a mission and the skills to complete it. It was a feeling he'd told himself he didn't miss. He'd been lying. By the time they finished, the rain had stopped and the bar was filling with the after-work crowd. They gathered their materials and prepared to leave separately. Together, they'd be memorable. Apart, they were just people. Sarah left first, pausing at the booth. My brother believed in the system, believed that doing the right thing would protect him. It got him killed. I know, Marcus said. Don't let that happen to you. She walked out into the wet streets, leaving Marcus alone with Webb and Victoria. This is your last chance to walk away, Marcus told them. Both of you. After tomorrow night, everything changes. Victoria met his eyes. It already changed. The moment those men came through my door, it changed. Webb stood and stretched. I'll have the identities ready by morning, clean backgrounds, employment history, the works. They won't hold up to deep investigation, but for a one-night catering gig, they'll pass. Good. Meet at the staging location at 4 p.m. Sarah will have the details. They left together, Webb heading for his car, Victoria flagging down a cab. Marcus watched them go, then pulled out his phone. He had one more call to make. Mrs. Chen answered on the second ring. Marcus, is everything okay? Yeah, how's Lily? She's wonderful. We made cookies this afternoon. She wanted to save you some, but I think she ate them all. Marcus smiled despite everything. That sounds like her. When will you be back? What? Soon. Few more days, maybe. There was a pause. Mrs. Chen wasn't stupid. She knew something was wrong. Be careful, Marcus. I will. He hung up and stood in the rain, watching the city lights blur through the water streaming down the windows. Somewhere out there, Kashev was planning his next move. Crane was hosting his gala, surrounded by the powerful and corrupt. And a little girl was eating cookies, unaware that her father was about to walk into something he might not walk out of. Marcus thought about the last time he'd held a weapon with intent to use it, 6 years ago, on his final mission before he'd walked away. He'd stood in a warehouse in Prague, surrounded by bodies he'd put down, and realized he couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't carry that weight. So he'd laid down his gun and walked away. Now here he was, picking it back up. But this time was different. This time it wasn't for a mission or a country or a cause he half believed in. This time it was personal. They'd threatened his daughter, put her in a room with armed men, made her count to 30 while the world fell apart around her. For that, there would be a reckoning. Marcus pulled his collar up against the rain and started walking. He had 24 hours to prepare for a fight that would either end this or end him. Either way, tomorrow night, someone was going to pay for what they'd done. And Marcus Hale was very good at collecting debts. The catering van pulled up to Crane's estate at exactly 5:47 p.m. Marcus sat in the back between stacks of serving trays and champagne cases, wearing a white service jacket that was half a size too small. Webb drove, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sarah rode shotgun, her federal agent composure buried under the nervous energy of someone playing a role they'd never auditioned for. "Credentials ready?" Marcus asked quietly. Webb patted his pocket. Mark Sullivan, event coordinator for Premier Catering Services. 15 years in the business, impeccable references, 0 criminal record. Sarah? Jennifer Woods, server, 3 years with Premier. She adjusted her bow tie. This is the dumbest thing I've ever done, and I once went undercover at a biker rally in Arizona. That makes 2 of us, Webb muttered. The estate security gate loomed ahead, all wrought iron and stone pillars that screamed old money. 2 guards in suits that didn't quite hide their shoulder holsters approached the van. One gestured for Webb to roll down the window. "Evening," the guard said. "Name and company?" "Sullivan, Premier Catering. We're on the approved vendor list for tonight's event." The guard checked a tablet, scanned Webb's forged credentials, then walked around the van. Marcus stayed perfectly still as a flashlight beam swept through the back windows, illuminating trays and bottles in his face for exactly 2 seconds. The guard returned to the window. "You're clear. Service entrance is around back. Stay in the designated areas. No wandering." "Understood." The gate rolled open and they drove through, following a curved driveway that wound past manicured gardens and a fountain that probably cost more than Marcus had made in his entire life. The main house sat at the top of a gentle hill, all white columns and tall windows glowing with warm light. "Jesus," Webb breathed. "How does a government salary buy this?" "It doesn't," Sarah said flatly. "Blood money does." They parked near the service entrance where 3 other catering vans were already unloading. Marcus grabbed a tray of hors d'oeuvres and fell in line with the real catering staff, head down, movements practiced. Webb and Sarah followed his lead. Inside, the service areas were controlled chaos. Staff rushed through narrow hallways carrying plates and glasses and flower arrangements. A harried woman with a clipboard intercepted them immediately. "Sullivan, you're late." "Traffic," Webb said smoothly. "Where do you need us?" "Anywhere. Ballroom's already filling up. We're short 3 servers and the champagne fountain isn't working." She thrust menus at them. Smoked salmon, crab cakes, mini beef Wellingtons. Keep them circulating. Don't bother the guests with conversation. If anyone asks for something special, find me." She vanished into the chaos before they could respond. Marcus picked up a tray of salmon and exchanged a glance with Sarah. She nodded once, grabbed her own tray, and they split up. The ballroom was exactly what Marcus expected. Crystal chandeliers, a string quartet in the corner, maybe 200 people in evening wear that cost more than most cars. Senators, lobbyists, defense contractors, the kind of power brokers who decided policy over cocktails and called it networking. And somewhere in this crowd was Mitchell Crane. Marcus moved through the room like a ghost, offering salmon to people who barely acknowledged his existence. Invisible again, but by choice this time. He scanned faces, matching them to the photos Sarah had pulled. Senator Wallace from the Armed Services Committee. Defense Secretary Morrison's Chief of Staff. The CEO of Redstone Defense Systems. Every single person here had something to gain from keeping the status quo intact. He spotted Crane near the bar, holding court with 3 men in expensive suits. The former deputy director looked good for 70. Silver hair, perfectly styled, custom tuxedo, the kind of easy confidence that came from decades of getting away with murder. Literally, in this case. Marcus circled closer, positioning himself within earshot. "Telling you, the Oversight Committee is toothless," Crane was saying. "They make noise for the cameras, then vote however I tell them to vote. We've got nothing to worry about." "What about the Vance situation, Shot?" one of the suits asked. Crane's smile didn't waver. "Handled. By tomorrow morning, Victoria Vance will be yesterday's news and Vanguard will be under new management." Marcus's jaw tightened. Tomorrow morning. They were planning to move tonight. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to Victoria. "They're coming for you tonight. Stay mobile. Don't go back to the safe house." The response came within seconds. "Already moving. I'm at the Fairmont, lobby bar. Lots of witnesses." Marcus pocketed the phone and continued circulating. He needed to find where Crane went when he wasn't performing for the crowd. The study, maybe. Or a private office. Webb appeared at his elbow, empty tray in hand. "Second floor," he whispered. "East wing. Saw Crane heading up there 20 minutes ago to take a call. There's a security guy posted at the top of the stairs, but he's on a rotation. Every 15 minutes, he does a walkthrough of the rooms. Did you plant the device?" Bumped into him near the bathroom, clipped it to his jacket lapel. It's broadcasting on a secure frequency. Sarah's monitoring from the van. Marcus nodded. "Good. When's the next guard rotation?" Webb checked his watch. 8 minutes. "Meet me at the service stairs. We'll go up together. Less suspicious." They separated and Marcus made his way toward the back of the ballroom. The service stairs were hidden behind a door marked staff only. He slipped through and climbed quickly, Webb right behind him. The second floor was quieter, thick carpet muffling their footsteps. Portraits of people who looked like they'd never smiled hung on wood-paneled walls. The security guard Webb had mentioned stood at the intersection of 2 hallways, checking his phone with the bored expression of someone who'd worked too many of these events. Marcus and Webb waited in the stairwell until the guard started his patrol, then moved. Crane's office was the 3rd door on the left, according to the floor plan Sarah had provided. Marcus tried the handle. Locked, but not with anything serious. He pulled a pick set from his pocket, old habits, and had it open in 12 seconds. Inside the office was all dark wood and leather. A desk that probably weighed 500 pounds sat near floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate grounds. Bookshelves lined one wall filled with volumes that looked more decorative than read. "Check the desk," Marcus told Webb. "I'll take the files." Webb moved to the computer while Marcus started pulling documents from a filing cabinet. Most of it was boring: tax records, investment portfolios, correspondence with banks. But in the back of the bottom drawer, hidden under a stack of old congressional briefings, Marcus found a folder marked Meridian. Inside were bank statements, transaction records showing money flowing from accounts in the Cayman Islands to Crane's various holding companies. Dates and amounts that matched exactly with the shipments Richard Morse had documented. And at the bottom, a handwritten note on Vanguard letterhead. "Next shipment confirmed. Payment to follow usual channels. K sends regards, K. Kashev." Marcus photographed everything with his phone, then put it back exactly as he'd found it. Marcus? Webb hissed. Computer's encrypted, but there's something here. Marcus joined him at the desk. Webb had pulled up an email program, sorted by sender. One name appeared repeatedly, V. Kashev, routed through an encrypted server. Can you break the encryption? Marcus asked. Not here, not without better equipment, but look at the send times. Marcus scanned the list. The most recent email was from 3 hours ago. Subject line, situation escalating. He knows, Marcus said. Kashev knows someone's on to them. Which means they're going to accelerate whatever they have planned for Victoria. Marcus pulled out his phone to warn her again, but before he could type, Webb's phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Crane just got a call. He's heading to his office. You need to get out now. Shit! Marcus grabbed Webb's arm and pulled him toward the door. They made it into the hallway just as footsteps echoed from the main stairs. Crane's voice carried ahead of him, speaking to someone on the phone. I don't care what it takes. Find her and finish it. No more delays. Marcus and Webb ducked into a side room, a library or study, dark except for ambient light from the grounds. Through the crack in the door, Marcus watched Crane walk past, still on his phone. Yes, tonight. I want confirmation by midnight. Crane paused outside his office door. And the janitor, the one who interfered? Marcus's blood went cold. Double the bounty. I want him and his daughter found. Use them as leverage if necessary. The office door opened and closed. Webb looked at Marcus, his face pale in the darkness. They know about Lily. Marcus didn't respond. Couldn't respond. His mind had gone to that cold, calculating place where emotions didn't matter and only tactics existed. They'd made it personal before. Now they'd made it unforgivable. Change of plans, Marcus said quietly. We're not leaving until I talk to Crane. Marcus, that's not... They threatened my daughter. I'm done playing careful. Before Webb could argue, Marcus pulled the Glock he'd hidden under his jacket, smuggled in through the catering van, secured in a hidden pocket the metal detectors had missed, and stepped into the hallway. Crane's office door wasn't locked this time. Marcus pushed it open and walked in. Crane looked up from his phone, surprised for maybe half a second before his expression shifted to cold calculation. Mr. Hale, I was wondering when you'd show up. Marcus closed the door behind him. You know my name. Of course. I know everything about you. Marcus Hale, formerly known as Reaper. 17 years of black operations across 4 continents, 943 confirmed kills. Walked away 6 years ago under circumstances that were never fully explained. Crane set his phone down carefully. You were one of our best, until you decided you had a conscience. You sold out my team in Crimea. I made a strategic decision. Kashev was more valuable operational than dead. Your team was acceptable collateral. 3 good men died. 3 expendable operators died completing a mission they didn't understand. That's how this works, Hale. You knew that when you signed up. Marcus raised the Glock. Here's how this works now. You're going to call Kashev and tell him to stand down. Cancel whatever you have planned for Victoria Vance. End the contract on me. Walk away from Meridian Holdings and everything connected to it. Crane actually smiled. Or what? You'll shoot me? In my own house, surrounded by security and 200 witnesses? You're not that stupid. You're right. I won't shoot you here. Marcus's voice dropped. But I will make sure every single person downstairs knows exactly what you've been doing. Federal agents are already standing by with the evidence. One call from me and this whole place gets raided. Every guest here gets questioned. Your entire network gets exposed. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Crane's face. You're bluffing. Try me. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the muffled sound of the party continuing downstairs. Crane's phone rang. They both looked at it. The screen showed Kashev. Answer it, Marcus said. Speaker. Crane picked up the phone slowly and pressed speaker. Mitchell. Kashev's voice was rough, accent thick. We have problem. I'm aware. I have it under control. No, you don't. Background noise on Kashev's end. Voices, movement, the sound of preparations. Your control is illusion. Someone has been digging. Someone has evidence. Transaction records, shipping manifests, all of it. Crane's eyes never left Marcus. Who? Does it matter? The exposure is coming. We accelerate timeline, move all assets tonight, liquidate complications. That includes Victoria Vance? That includes everyone. Vance, the janitor, his daughter, everyone who knows anything. A pause. And Mitchell? This includes you if you cannot contain situation. The line went dead. Crane set the phone down with hands that weren't quite steady anymore. You heard him, Marcus said. You're a complication too. The moment you stop being useful, you're dead. We can make a deal. No deals. You call him back right now and end this, or I walk downstairs and burn your entire world down. You think you're the hero here? Crane's voice turned bitter. You're just like me, Hale. A killer with a different excuse. The only difference is I had the courage to profit from it instead of pretending I was serving some higher purpose. Marcus thought about that. Thought about all the missions, all the bodies, all the lies he'd told himself about duty and honor and necessary evils. You're right, yeah, he said. I'm not a hero, but I'm a father. And you threatened my daughter. That makes this simple. He shot Crane in the knee. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Crane went down screaming, clutching his leg as blood spread across the expensive carpet. Marcus was on him in 2 strides, Glock pressed against his temple. Call! Kashev! Now! Crane's face was white with pain and rage. You're a dead man. We're all dead men. Some of us just take longer to fall. Marcus pressed the gun harder. Call him. Footsteps pounded in the hallway. The gunshot had been heard. They had maybe 30 seconds before security burst through the door. Crane grabbed his phone with shaking hands and dialed. Kashev answered on the first ring. Mitchell? It's over, Crane gasped. Stand down. All operations, everything. What are you? The evidence is already with federal agents. If anything happens to Vance or Hale or anyone connected to this, it all goes public. Your network, your buyers, every operation for the last decade. It's over. Silence on the other end. Then, you weak fool. Victor, please. You are already dead to me. The line clicked off. The office door burst open. 2 security guards came through fast, weapons drawn. Marcus was already moving. He dropped the Glock, raised his hands, and went to his knees. Don't shoot. I surrender. The guards swarmed him, slamming him face down on the carpet. Hands pulled his arms back. Zip ties bit into his wrists. Someone kicked him in the ribs, hard. Through it all, Marcus kept his eyes on Crane, bleeding on his expensive carpet, watching everything he'd built crumble. I recorded it, Marcus said as they dragged him toward the door. Every word, already uploaded to the cloud. Sarah Chen has copies. So does Victoria Vance. You can kill me, but you can't stop what's coming. Crane's face twisted with hate and fear and the dawning realization that he'd lost. They hauled Marcus into the hallway where more security had gathered. Webb was already restrained, being held at gunpoint. Guests from the party were crowding the stairs, phones out, filming everything. Perfect. I'm Marcus Hale, he shouted as they dragged him past the crowd. Former CIA operative. The man bleeding in that office is Mitchell Crane, and he's been trafficking weapons to terrorists for over a decade. He's been paid by a Russian arms dealer named Viktor Kashev to use Vanguard Industries as a front for illegal shipments. Federal agents have all the evidence. This ends tonight. The security guards hit him again, but the damage was done. Dozens of phones had recorded every word. It would be on social media within minutes, national news within the hour. They threw Marcus into a side room and slammed the door. Through the wall, he could hear chaos erupting, guests demanding answers, security trying to maintain control, sirens approaching in the distance. Someone had called the police. Webb was shoved into the room 30 seconds later, bleeding from his nose. That went well. Marcus almost laughed. Better than expected. They're going to kill us. Probably. But Kashev heard Crane break. Heard the threat about evidence going public. He'll run, and when he runs, he'll make mistakes. The door opened again, and Sarah walked in, hands raised, her FBI credentials held high. Federal agent, she announced to the guards behind her. These men are in my custody. Back off. The guards looked uncertain. One of them spoke into his radio, getting orders. Sarah crouched next to Marcus. The recording uploaded? Yeah, you got it? Every word. And Victoria's already released the documents to 3 major news outlets. This story breaks in, she checked her watch, about 20 minutes. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling something like relief wash over him. They'd done it. Maybe not clean, maybe not pretty, but they'd done it. The guard's radio crackled. FBI is confirming her credentials. Let them go. The zip ties were cut. Marcus stood, rubbing his wrists, and looked at Sarah. Where's Kashev? Unknown. But after that call, he's going to run. We've got federal agents watching every airport within 200 miles, borders on alert, and international warrants being prepared. He won't use official channels. He'll have a private exit strategy. So we find it and cut it off. They walked out of the room together, past security guards who looked like they didn't know whether to arrest everyone or start looking for new jobs. The party had dissolved into confusion. Crane was being loaded into an ambulance, still screaming about lawyers and immunity and conspiracies. Outside, more police cars were arriving. Real cops this time, not the private security Crane kept on payroll. Webb appeared at Marcus's elbow. I pulled the bug off Crane before they grabbed us. Sarah, you got everything? Crystal clear, already backed up to 3 separate servers. Marcus pulled out his phone. 15 missed calls from Victoria, all in the last 10 minutes. He called her back. Marcus? Her voice was tight with stress. I saw the news alerts. Are you… I'm fine, we're all fine. You released the documents? Everything. Washington Post, New York Times, and Reuters. They're running with it. The story's everywhere. Good. Stay at the Fairmont. Don't move until I come get you. What about Kashev? Marcus looked at the estate, at the chaos they'd created, at the beginning of the end for a network that had operated in shadow for over a decade. He's running, but he's not getting away. He ended the call and turned to Sarah. I need access to your FBI resources, flight manifests, border crossing data, anything that shows movement in the last 2 hours. What are you thinking? Kashev heard everything. Heard that his network is blown, his protection is gone, his business is about to become an international manhunt. He's not going to wait around to see how it plays out. So he runs. But men like Kashev don't run empty-handed. He'll try to liquidate assets, grab whatever cash and leverage he can carry, and disappear into whatever hole he's been keeping ready for exactly this scenario. Webb was nodding, which means hitting Vanguard facilities, grabbing physical evidence, maybe taking hostages for bargaining chips. Or, Sarah said slowly, going after the one person who can identify him and testify to everything, Victoria Vance. Marcus felt ice form in his chest. He knows where she is, Crane would have told him. The Fairmont's got good security. Won't matter, Kashev has a hit team in the city, professional operators. They'll go through security like paper. Marcus was already running for the van, phone to his ear, dialing Victoria. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. They piled into the van, Webb behind the wheel, and tore out of the estate with 3 police cars following close behind. Sarah was on her phone coordinating with the FBI, scrambling tactical teams. But Marcus knew they'd be too late. Kashev had heard the walls closing in. He'd do what any cornered animal does, strike fast and hard, then vanish. The Fairmont was 20 minutes away in light traffic. They made it in 12, running red lights and weaving through intersections while Sarah shouted at dispatch to get units to the hotel immediately. Marcus burst through the lobby doors with his Glock drawn. The bar was to the right, already crowded with evening patrons. He scanned faces, looking for Victoria. Not there. Check the elevators, he told Webb. Sarah, get hotel security to pull her room number. Marcus approached the bar, showing his phone with Victoria's photo to the bartender. You seen this woman? Yeah, she was here about 20 minutes ago, had a couple drinks, then what? Then some guys in suits came and talked to her. She left with them. Marcus's blood went cold. How many guys? 3, maybe 4? I don't know. It's busy. Security footage, now. The hotel manager appeared, flustered and cooperative once Sarah flashed her FBI credentials. They crowded into the security office and pulled up footage from the bar area. There. Victoria sitting alone, checking her phone. Then 4 men approaching, showing her something. A badge, maybe, or credentials. Victoria standing, looking confused but cooperative, walking with them toward the exit. They took her, Webb said. Right out of a public hotel. License plate on their vehicle? Sarah asked the security chief. We can check the garage cameras. They found it within 60 seconds. A black SUV, no plates, pulling out of the garage with Victoria visible in the back seat through tinted windows. Sarah was already on her phone. I need an APB on a black SUV, no plates, last seen heading north on... She checked the timestamp. Heading north on 5th Avenue at 8:47 p.m. Occupants wanted for kidnapping. Consider armed and dangerous. Marcus stared at the frozen image of Victoria in the back seat. She looked scared but alive. For now. Where would he take her? Webb asked. Marcus thought through the scenarios. Kashev needed leverage, needed insurance, needed time to make his escape. Taking Victoria hostage gave him all three. But where? Vanguard Tower, Marcus said suddenly. He's going back to the beginning. Why there? Because it's his. He owns enough of it through Meridian to have access to every system, every security protocol. And because it's got everything he needs. Helicopter pad for escape, multiple floors he controls, and enough confusion from the earlier attack that security will be compromised. Sarah pulled up her phone. I'll get tactical teams to the tower. No. Marcus grabbed her arm. Kashev hears sirens, sees a tactical response. He kills Victoria immediately and disappears. We need to go in quiet. Just us. Marcus, that's insane. This is a hostage rescue situation. We need professionals. I am a professional. Marcus met her eyes. This is what I did for 17 years. Trust me. Sarah looked at Webb, who nodded slowly. All right, Ian, she said. But we do this my way. I call in backup but keep them at a perimeter. We go in, assess the situation, and if it's even slightly too hot, we pull out and let the professionals handle it. Deal! They ran for the van, leaving the hotel security team to coordinate with local police. The drive to Vanguard Tower took 8 minutes that felt like 8 hours. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Come to the tower. Come alone. Or she dies. No signature. Didn't need one. Marcus showed it to Sarah and Webb. It's a trap, Webb said. Obviously. So what's the play? Marcus thought about Lily, safe with Mrs. Chen, unaware that her father was about to walk into the exact scenario he'd spent 6 years avoiding. Thought about Victoria, who'd trusted him to keep her safe. Thought about 3 dead men in Crimea and 12 years of wanting payback. The play is I go in exactly like he wants, but you two come in through the service areas, move to the executive floor, and flank his position while he's focused on me. And if he kills you on sight? Sarah asked. Then you save Victoria and make sure Kashev doesn't leave that building alive. They pulled up 2 blocks from the tower. The streets were quieter here at night, just a few pedestrians and delivery trucks making rounds. The building itself was lit but subdued, most offices dark. Marcus checked his Glock one more time. Full magazine, one in the chamber, safety off. He looked at Sarah and Webb. Give me 10 minutes head start. Then come in through sub-level 4. You remember the route? Yeah. Good. Don't die. I'd hate to explain that to your families. Marcus stepped out of the van and walked toward Vanguard Tower, hands visible, weapon holstered, coming to finish what had started in this same building less than 48 hours ago. This time, there would be no walking away. The lobby of Vanguard Tower felt different at night. The same marble floors Marcus had mopped 1,000 times now reflected emergency lighting instead of fluorescence. The security desk sat empty, screens dark. Blood stained the floor near the elevators, dried now, brown instead of red. From the first attack, maybe. Or something more recent. Marcus walked through the silence, hands visible at his sides. Somewhere above him, cameras were watching. Kashev would be tracking every step. The elevator opened before Marcus reached it, waiting for him. He stepped inside and the doors closed. No buttons pressed. The car started rising on its own, taking him where Kashev wanted him to go. 63rd floor. Same place this had all started. The doors opened onto darkness broken by the glow of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus stepped out carefully, eyes adjusting. The executive offices stretched ahead, shadows pooling in doorways. Keep walking, Mr. Hale. The voice came from speakers overhead, accented and rough. Kashev. Down the hall, third door on your right. Marcus moved slowly, checking corners out of habit. The building felt dead. No hum of air conditioning, no distant voices. Just his footsteps on carpet and his own breathing. The third door opened into the main boardroom. Marcus remembered cleaning it. The long table that sat 20, the paintings worth more than most houses, the view that made you forget regular people existed. Victoria sat at the far end of the table, zip-tied to a chair. Her face was bruised, lips split, but her eyes tracked Marcus with sharp awareness, alive and alert. Two men flanked her. Professional security contractors by their stance and weapons. MP7s held ready, but not quite aimed. Confident, but not stupid. And standing by the windows, silhouetted against the city lights, was Viktor Kashev. He looked older than his file photos. 70, maybe more. Gray hair cropped military short, expensive suit that couldn't quite hide the hardness underneath. Eyes that had seen people die and felt nothing. Marcus Hale. Kashev turned from the window. The famous Reaper. I wondered if we would meet again. Again? Crimea, 2013. You nearly killed me that night. Marcus's memory pulled up fragments. The ambush, gunfire in the dark. A figure running through smoke and chaos. He'd taken the shot but missed, clipped the target's shoulder instead of center mass. That was you. Indeed. I have carried your bullet for 12 years, reminder of the only man who ever came close. Kashev smiled without warmth. You cost me $3 million and 6 months of recovery. I have been waiting a long time to return the favor. Let her go, this is between us. No, this is about much more than us. Kashev gestured at the city beyond the windows. This is about understanding your place in the machine. You were a tool, Hale. Precision instrument wielded by people like Mitchell Crane. You killed who they told you to kill. And when you stopped being useful, they discarded you. I walked away. You ran away. Like coward. Abandoned your purpose because you developed conscience. Kashev's voice dripped contempt. Weakness. The same weakness that makes you stand here now, trying to save woman you barely know instead of protecting your daughter. Marcus felt ice in his veins. You leave her out of this. Why? You brought her into it. The moment you interfered at this building, you made her target. The moment you shot Mitchell Crane, you signed her death warrant. Kashev pulled out a phone, showed Marcus the screen. A photo. Mrs. Chen's apartment building, timestamped 20 minutes ago. I have men positioned, one phone call, and they go inside. How long does old Chinese woman last against professionals, do you think? How long does 8-year-old girl last? Marcus's hand moved toward his Glock. Both contractors trained their weapons on him instantly. Kashev said. Slow. Use 2 fingers, remove gun, and slide it to me. Marcus hesitated, running calculations. Distance to nearest cover. Time to draw and fire. Probability of killing both contractors before they killed Victoria. Too many variables, too much risk. He pulled the Glock slowly and slid it across the polished table. It stopped halfway between them. Good. Now we talk like civilized men. Kashev pocketed his phone. You have caused me significant problems, Reaper. My network is exposed. My business partners are fleeing like rats. Crane is in custody. And you have made it so I cannot operate in shadows anymore. That was the idea. So I must adapt, disappear with enough assets to rebuild elsewhere. But I cannot do this while you and Ms. Vance exist to testify. Kashev walked to Victoria, put a hand on her shoulder. She flinched. She is leverage, insurance policy. You, however, are just unfinished business. Then kill me and be done with it. Oh, I will, but first you will call your FBI friends. Tell them to stand down. Tell them you made mistake, that Ms. Vance is safe, that everything is resolved. They won't believe me. They will believe enough. Long enough for helicopter to arrive and take me far from here. Long enough for my men to eliminate everyone who knows too much. Kashev smiled. Including your daughter. Marcus looked at Victoria. Her eyes were telling him something, trying to communicate without words. Then he understood. Her hands weren't actually zip-tied. The plastic restraints were looped around the chair arms, but not secured. She was waiting, waiting for the right moment. Marcus kept his face neutral. You're not walking away from this. The evidence is already out there. Every law enforcement agency in the world is looking for you. The world is large, and I have friends in places where extradition is difficult. Kashev checked his watch. You have 30 seconds to make the call, or I start removing Ms. Vance's fingers one at a time. You do that, you lose your leverage. I lose some leverage. She has 10 fingers. I can spare a few to make point. One of the contractors pulled out a knife. Marcus raised his hands. All right, I'll make the call. Kashev gestured to one of his men, who tossed Marcus a phone. Disposable burner, untraceable. Marcus dialed Sarah's number. She answered on the first ring. Marcus? Stand down, Marcus said clearly. Victoria's safe. It was a misunderstanding. We're resolving everything peacefully. Silence on the other end. Then Sarah's voice, tight with understanding. Copy that. Standing down. She'd gotten the message, the tone, the phrasing, all wrong. She'd know he was under duress. Kashev nodded, satisfied. Good. Now we wait for my exit to arrive. Should be here in... The lights went out. Complete darkness for 3 seconds, then emergency lighting kicked in. Red glow, barely enough to see. Kashev swore in Russian. What is this? One of the contractors spoke into his radio. Team 2, status report. Static. Team 2, respond. Nothing. Marcus smiled in the dark. Webb and Sarah had cut the power and communications. The building was isolated. Kashev turned to Marcus, fury in his eyes. What did you do? Me? I'm just standing here. Kill him! The contractors raised their weapons just as Victoria moved. She yanked her hands free and drove her elbow into the knife-wielding contractor's throat. He stumbled back, choking. She grabbed the knife from his hand and threw herself behind the chair as gunfire erupted. Marcus dove for the Glock on the table. His fingers closed around the grip as bullets chewed into wood and plaster above him. He rolled, came up firing, double-tapped to the first contractor's center mass. The man went down hard. The second contractor swung toward Marcus, but Victoria was faster. She came up with the knife and buried it in his kidney. He screamed and fired wildly. Rounds shattered windows and punched through walls. Marcus put 2 in his chest, and he dropped. Kashev ran. Marcus was up and moving before the echo of gunfire faded. He vaulted the table and sprinted after Kashev, who'd made it into the hallway. The older man moved fast for 70, muscle memory from a younger life. They crashed through a door into a stairwell. Kashev fired a pistol Marcus hadn't known he was carrying. Rounds sparked off metal railings. Marcus returned fire, trying for legs, trying to drop him without killing. He wanted Kashev alive, wanted him in a cell testifying to everything. But Kashev wasn't stopping. He climbed instead of descending, heading up toward the roof. The helipad. Marcus took the stairs 3 at a time, his 42-year-old knees protesting but holding. Above him, Kashev reached the roof access and slammed through. Marcus followed into wind and darkness. The helipad sat at the building's peak, a circle of white paint and landing lights currently dark. Rain had started again, light but steady. The city sprawled in every direction, a million lights that didn't care what happened up here. Kashev stood at the far edge, gun trained on Marcus. Nowhere left to run, Marcus said, raising his own weapon. There is always somewhere to run, always another identity, another operation, another war to profit from. Kashev's accent got thicker with stress. You think you have won? You have won nothing. Men like me, we are eternal. We provide what the world needs, weapons, violence, solutions that politicians cannot admit they require. You remove me, someone else takes my place tomorrow. Maybe, but you'll be in a cell watching it happen. You think I will allow that? I will die before I give them satisfaction of trial. Marcus saw it then. The resignation in Kashev's eyes, the acceptance. He wasn't planning to escape. This was his exit strategy. Marcus said. Why not? I am old man. I have lived full life, made fortune, seen the world burn and profited from the flames. What is left? Slow death in prison cell? I think not. You owe answers. The families of everyone your weapons killed. They deserve to know who armed their murderers. They deserve nothing. Death is the only answer any of us get. Kashev lowered his weapon slightly. You understand this, Reaper. You have given that answer 900 times. What makes you different from me? Marcus thought about that. Thought about all the operations, all the justified murders, all the times he'd pulled a trigger because someone in Washington said it needed pulling. I stopped, Marcus said quietly. I looked at what I was doing and I stopped. Because you had daughter, because you found something more important than the work. Kashev nodded. So you understand. I have nothing more important. He gestured at the city, the darkness, the rain. This is all I have, and I will not let you take it. He raised the gun to his own temple. Marcus fired first, not to kill, to wound. The round caught Kashev's shoulder, spinning him, the pistol flying from his hand. He stumbled backward toward the edge. Marcus lunged forward, grabbed for him. Their hands met for a second. Marcus felt the weight of a 70-year-old man who'd built an empire on blood. Felt him slipping. Kashev's eyes met his, and the old arms dealer smiled. See you in hell, Reaper. He let go. Marcus watched him fall, watched him disappear into the rain and darkness. Heard the impact 6 seconds later, distant and final. For a long moment, Marcus just stood there in the rain, breathing hard, staring at the empty air where Kashev had been. Then footsteps behind him. Sarah and Webb, weapons drawn, assessing the situation. Marcus? Sarah's voice was tight. Where's Kashev? Marcus pointed down. Webb looked over the edge, then turned away quickly. Jesus. Victoria? Marcus asked. She's okay. Bruised, but okay. She took down one of the contractors before we even made it to her floor. Woman's tougher than she looks. Sarah was on her radio, calling it in. Suspect is down. Repeat. Suspect is down. Send medical and recovery team to Vanguard Tower, roof level. 1 deceased, multiple wounded. Situation contained. Marcus walked to the roof access door and sat down heavily. The adrenaline was draining out of him, leaving exhaustion and the dull ache of old injuries aggravated by new violence. Webb sat beside him. You okay? Yeah. You don't look okay. Marcus didn't answer. He was thinking about Kashev's question. What makes you different from me? The answer was supposed to be simple. Good guys versus bad guys. Justice versus corruption. But sitting here in the rain with another body added to the count, the lines felt blurrier than they should. I tried to save him, Marcus said finally. Tried to bring him in alive. I know. He chose to fall. I know that too. Sarah joined them, pocketing her radio. Federal teams are en route. They'll secure the building, process the scene. We'll all need to give statements, probably spend most of tomorrow being debriefed. And Victoria? They're taking her to the hospital to get checked out. She refused to leave until she knew you were okay. Sarah paused. She asked me to tell you thank you for everything. Marcus nodded slowly. Below them, the sound of sirens approaching. Police, FBI, probably half a dozen agencies scrambling to figure out what had happened in the last 48 hours. Marcus pulled out his phone and called Mrs. Chen. She answered immediately. Marcus? It's almost midnight. Is Lily okay? She's fine. She's asleep. Marcus, what's wrong? Nothing. Everything's fine now. He closed his eyes. I'll be there in the morning to pick her up, early. All right. Be safe. He hung up and sat in the rain, letting it wash over him. The machine was broken. Kashev was dead. Crane was in custody. The evidence was public and the investigations had started. It would take years to untangle all the corruption, all the conspiracies, all the money trails that led to dark places. But the immediate threat was over. Victoria was alive, Lily was safe, and Marcus could go back to being invisible. Except he couldn't, not really. Too many people knew his name now. Too many agencies would have questions. The quiet life he'd built was gone, burned away in muzzle flash and desperate choices. What are you going to do now? Webb asked, like he'd read Marcus's thoughts. I don't know. Figure it out as I go, I guess. You could come back. The agency would take you. Different role, maybe. Training, analysis. You've still got skills they need. Marcus thought about that. Thought about going back to the world he'd left behind. The missions. The moral compromises. The slow erosion of whatever made you human. No, he said. That life's done. Then what? Marcus stood, joints protesting. Then I go be a father. That's all I've wanted for 6 years. Maybe now I can actually do it. They rode down in the elevator together, past floors where crime scene techs were already working, past security footage being analyzed, past the machinery of justice grinding slowly into gear. The lobby was full of federal agents and local police. Victoria sat on a gurney despite the paramedics trying to get her to the hospital. When she saw Marcus, she stood up. "You look terrible," she said. "You're one to talk." She laughed, then winced and touched her split lip. "Thank you for coming for me, for not leaving me with him. You saved yourself. That knife work was impressive. I took self-defense classes after the first attack. Guess they paid off." She paused. "What happens now?" "Now you rebuild. Take back your company from the people who were using it. Make it clean." "And you?" Marcus looked around the lobby. The same lobby where he'd pushed a cleaning cart and been invisible. Where all of this had started because he'd made a choice to act instead of hide. "I'm going to take my daughter to school on Monday," he said. "Going to help her with homework and make dinner and do all the normal dad things I've been too busy surviving to enjoy." Victoria pulled a business card from her pocket. The same one she'd given him before, creased now and water-stained. "The offer still stands. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, call me." Marcus took the card this time. "I will." "I mean it, Marcus. You saved my life, multiple times. That's a debt I take seriously." "You don't owe me anything." "I disagree, but I'll let you think that if it makes you feel better." She smiled despite everything. "Good luck being a normal dad. Good luck being a CEO who actually knows what her company does." She laughed again and let the paramedics guide her toward the ambulance. Webb and Sarah caught up with Marcus on his way out. "FBI's going to want full statements," Sarah said. "Probably tomorrow. Maybe the day after. This is going to be complicated." "I know. But Marcus, we did it. We actually did it. Kashev's dead. Crane's arrested. The whole network is exposed because of what we did." Marcus nodded. It should have felt like victory. Maybe it would, eventually. Right now, it just felt like exhaustion. "Go home," Webb said. "Get some sleep. We'll handle the fallout." Marcus shook his hand, then Sarah's, and walked out into the rain. The city looked the same as always. Traffic lights changing colors for nobody. Steam rising from grates. A few people hurrying through the weather. The world hadn't noticed that anything had changed. But it had. Somewhere, families would wake up tomorrow to news reports about weapons trafficking and government corruption. Would read about the janitor who'd taken down an international arms dealer. Would wonder how many other quiet men were walking among them with dangerous pasts. Marcus caught a cab home. The driver tried to make conversation but gave up when Marcus just stared out the window. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it. Empty, but not lonely. Quiet, but not silent. Just a place where a man and his daughter lived their small life. He stood in Lily's room for a while, looking at her drawings on the walls. Pictures of rabbits and flowers and stick figures holding hands. A life that had nothing to do with violence or conspiracy or men falling from buildings. That was the life he wanted, the life he'd fought for. The next morning, Marcus woke early and drove to Mrs. Chen's apartment. Lily was already up, eating cereal and watching cartoons. "Daddy!" She ran to him and he scooped her up, holding her tight. "Hey, baby girl, miss me?" Ma. Mrs. Chen taught me how to make dumplings. Can we make some at home?" "Yeah, we can make dumplings." Mrs. Chen appeared from the kitchen, giving Marcus a long look. "You look tired." "It was a long couple of days." "Everything resolved?" "Everything's resolved." She nodded, asked no more questions, and helped Lily gather her things. They drove home through Sunday morning streets. Lily chattered about everything she'd done at Mrs. Chen's, the cookies, the dumplings, the cartoon she'd watched, all the normal things that normal kids talked about. At a red light, she paused and looked at Marcus seriously. "Are the bad men gone?" Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Yeah, baby, they're gone. All of them? All of them. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to telling him about the cartoon. The light turned green, and Marcus drove on. 3 weeks later, the story had moved from breaking news to analysis pieces to the slow grind of congressional hearings and federal prosecutions. Mitchell Crane had been indicted on 14 counts, including treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and arms trafficking. His lawyers were fighting extradition to The Hague, where international charges waited. Vanguard Industries had new leadership. Victoria had cleaned house, fired half the executive team, and brought in auditors to examine every transaction from the last decade. The stock had crashed initially, then recovered as she proved the corruption had been contained. She'd called Marcus twice, once to update him on the investigation, once just to talk, to check in, to make sure he was okay. He was. The FBI had taken his statement over 3 separate interviews. They'd been thorough but fair. Sarah had vouched for him, and the evidence spoke for itself. No charges were filed. His old identity was sealed again under protective status. He was invisible again, but on his own terms this time. Marcus picked Lily up from school on a Thursday afternoon. She climbed into the car with her backpack and Mr. Buttons and a drawing she'd made in art class. "Look, Daddy, it's us." 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small, smiling. "It's perfect," Marcus said. "Can we get ice cream?" "Sure, but you have to eat real food for dinner." "Deal." They went to the ice cream place on 5th Street where the owner knew them by name. Lily got chocolate chip, Marcus got coffee. They sat by the window and watched people walk past. Normal people doing normal things, going to jobs, meeting friends, living lives that didn't involve counting bodies or making impossible choices. Marcus was one of them now. Had been, really, for 6 years. The last 3 weeks had been an interruption. A necessary one, maybe, but an interruption nonetheless. "Daddy?" Lily's voice pulled him back. "Yeah? Are you happy?" The question surprised him. "What makes you ask that?" She shrugged, swinging her legs under the table. "You look sad sometimes, like you're thinking about things that make you sad." Marcus looked at his daughter, 8 years old, too smart for her own good, seeing things he wished she didn't have to see. "Sometimes I think about things that make me sad," he admitted. "Things that happened before you were born, people I knew who aren't here anymore." "Like Mommy?" "Yeah, like Mommy." They were quiet for a moment. Outside, the city moved through its rhythms. "But I'm not sad right now," Marcus said. "Right now I'm sitting here with you eating ice cream, and that makes me happy." Lily considered this. "Good, because you're a good daddy, and good daddies should be happy." "Where'd you get so wise?" "I don't know, just am." Marcus smiled. "Finish your ice cream. We've still got homework to do." "Can we make dumplings after?" "We can make dumplings after." They finished their ice cream and walked home through streets that were familiar and safe, past the corner store where Marcus bought milk and bread, past the park where Lily played on weekends, past Mrs. Chen's apartment where lights were on and she was probably making dinner. Their apartment building looked the same as always. A little worn, a little tired, but home. Inside, Marcus helped Lily with math homework while dinner cooked. They made dumplings together, flour getting everywhere, Lily's creations looking more like abstract art than food. After dinner, they watched a movie, some animated thing about talking animals. Lily fell asleep halfway through, Mr. Buttons tucked under her arm. Marcus carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood in the doorway watching her breathe. This was what he'd fought for, this quiet moment, this peace. He thought about Kashev's question, "What makes you different from me?" The answer was here, in this room, in the sleeping child who trusted him to keep her safe, in the choice to build something instead of destroy, in the decision to stop when stopping was the hardest thing he'd ever done. Marcus had been a weapon for 17 years, had done things he couldn't undo and carried weight he couldn't put down. But for 6 years he'd been something else, something better. A father. And 3 weeks ago, when the past had come calling, and the choice was between hiding and acting, he'd chosen to protect what mattered most. Not because he was a hero, he wasn't. Heroes didn't have body counts like his, but because some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth becoming visible for, even when visibility was dangerous. His daughter was one of those things. Marcus closed Lily's door softly and went to the kitchen. He made coffee he didn't really want and sat at the table, looking at the business card Victoria had given him. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know if the quiet life would last or if something else would come crawling out of his past. But he knew one thing. Whatever came, he'd face it. Not as Reaper, not as the ghost he'd been, but as Marcus Hale. Father. Former janitor. Man trying to do better. And maybe that was enough. Maybe it had always been enough. Outside, the city settled into night. A million lives and a million windows, all of them fighting their own battles, carrying their own weight, trying to build something worth keeping. Marcus finished his coffee, washed the cup, and went to bed. Tomorrow, he'd take Lily to school, help her with homework, make dinner, do all the small, important things that made up a life worth living. The past was behind him now, not forgotten, it would never be forgotten, but no longer in control. He was free. And that, finally, was everything.